I'd like to call the Village of Cottage Grove Village Board Trustees meeting to order on March 4th. It is 6:30 p.m. We are holding this on Zoom as well as in the Village Hall. The Zoom link is top of the agenda. There's also an audio call-in number as well. And we are live streaming as well. So with that, we have a quorum and the agenda was properly posted, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next up, then, we have public appearances. This is public's opportunity to speak on any subject. If you are from the public, we just ask that you share your name, your address, your municipality, and hold your comments to no more than 3 minutes in case we have a lot of folks who would like to speak. So with that, I will be quiet. Anybody on the Zoom or in the room, please feel free to chime in. Next, then, we have discuss and consider our meeting minutes from our regular village board meeting held on February 19th. Any questions, comments, edits in regards to the meeting minutes as presented?
I'll move approval as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion second then. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next, then we move down to unfinished business. First up is to discuss and consider resolution authorizing the issuance of a sale of just over $5 million in taxable general obligation promissory notes 2024A, and Greg is here from Ellers.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm going to go through the sale report for the promissory notes that were sold earlier this morning. Just to recap the purpose of these promissory notes, this is to finance land acquisition in Taxable District Number 9. We conducted a competitive sale, took bids this morning. There's a total of 10 bids, which is a very significant number of bids. The winning bid was submitted by Fifth Third Securities out of Cincinnati, Ohio. The final true interest cost came in at 5.6254%. The total net principal and interest over the life of the notes is $6.1 million. The total net principal and interest is $361,000 less than the pre-sale estimate that we presented to the village board last month. So the interest cost, interest rates were much better than what we had anticipated. Just to kind of walk through the exhibits that are included. So as I mentioned, there were a total of 10 bids received. You'll see that there's underwriters from all around the country, so there was very strong interest in these notes. So you'll see Ohio, Texas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Tennessee, Missouri, and then San Antonio, Texas, and Chicago. So very strong interest with bidders from around the country. So it's always good to see that when we take bids. So again, the total amount of the land acquisition is approximately $4.9 million. The final borrowing amount, based on the final cost of issuance expenses, is $4,975,000. So that's $55,000 less than the amount that you authorized last month. So you get the same amount of note proceeds for the land acquisition, just have to issue less debt to pay for it, which is always a good outcome. So in terms of the debt service, so the debt is amortized from 2025 through 2032. Again, that total net principal and interest came in at approximately $6.1 million. That's, again, $361,000 less than what we had estimated last month. We included the same cash flow analysis that we summarized in our pre-sale report. So we've forecasted future incremental value in TID District Number 9. We've only forecasted what we've estimated was constructed in 2023, estimate another 18 million of incremental value, which is the completion of the Authentics development. And then with the village acquiring property, some taxable improvements that'll be reduced since you're converting it to tax exempt. So we're really not forecasting any new development on the land that you're acquiring, kind of looking at it very conservatively, that if you just had the completion of the Authentics project and the existing incremental value of the district, is that sufficient to cover the debt service payments for the land acquisition? And the answer to that is yes. So we look at the future revenue over the remaining life of the district. TID 9 collects increment through 2039. So we're forecasting there'd be about 12.7 million of tax increment collected within the district. So if we just look at the anticipated debt service cost of these notes to acquire the land, that's really the only major obligation would be outstanding of this district. There's just been some modest cost incurred since the district was created. So in essence, the village is taking the tax increment from other developments within the district, and you're acquiring some land to hopefully spur some additional development within the district. But if nothing else happened in the district, very conservative, and you repaid this debt service for the land acquisition, forecasting the district would be in position to close by 2031. So again, even with no additional development on that land you're acquiring, the incremental value that's there presently and anticipated to be constructed in 2023 should be sufficient to cover the debt service. So as the village has done in the past, the village obtained a rating from Standard & Poor's. The village's existing rating of AA stable was affirmed, so no change to the village's rating. We've included a copy of the credit profile that was prepared by S&P. So again, to summarize, you're authorizing issuance of promissory notes to finance land acquisition in TID 9. Again, the final borrowing amount was $4,975,000. If you choose to award the sale, there'll be a bid form signed by the village president and village clerk evidencing your approval of the sale. So that's the overview. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Greg. Any questions from board members?
Should the motion be the 4.9 million or the 5 in the
The
agenda?
$4,975,000 should be the motion.
Okay, that's a motionable thing, right? I'll make a motion that we authorize the $4,975,000 issuance and taxable general obligation promissory notes.
Is there a second? Okay, we have a second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. All right. Thanks, Greg.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next, then, we have to discuss and consider a revised 2023 to 2032 Deer Grove EMS intergovernmental agreement. Chief is here, so we're going to grab him and let him chat. I think his arm was twisted by Larry. I was going to let him off.
His success, you gotta let him talk.
I know.
All right, so this is coming to you all for approval after a year and a half worth of work and a second revision. I would like to thank everybody on the board for their willingness to work through all this with us and bring forth good quality ideas to have an agreement that we can all agree upon moving forward. So the overview quickly would be, not many changes were made, but some were relatively significant. So I think the biggest one would be the change in funding formula from simply equalized value to a formula using equalized value, the average of the past 3 years of calls for service and population, creating the new formula. I think that's the part of the agreement that took the most word crafting from me to make sense, and making sure that formulas looked right on the form and whatnot. In relation to funding formula, the next big thing was reporting to the boards when we see the need to add staff in the future, that we can justify the need for staff by statistical analysis and show that how our response will change or potentially improve with the addition of new staff. In the approval of third-party contracts, the approval of a contract with any other municipality got changed from simple majority of the boards to unanimous approval of the boards. And just to clarify a question from the other boards, unanimous approval of the boards means that each of the 3 boards have to approve it, not each of the 3 boards have to approve it unanimously, if that makes sense. We added in verbiage to cover the 2023 Wisconsin Act 12 for the extra payments from Wisconsin for the thing that Cameron's going to fill in my head here that I can't remember right now.
Supplemental aid. Yeah. I think too, before we get too far, just so residents who are listening kind of understand the why on the formula change. EMS is a service that protects people, not property. So a formula solely on equalized value wasn't deemed necessarily, in our opinion, the best way to split out costs through the community. So that's why we went towards a combination of equalized value, calls for service, and population.
And in our industry, there is no standard funding formula. So the formula we came to was kind of an agreement of the 3 communities that while there's no perfect formula, we'll come to the best one that would work for everybody. We talked about ownership of assets and adjusted stuff in that section, section 5, not only based off of items with giving value of when they were purchased, as opposed to the time of evaluation. Also discussed any potential new municipality entering and their ability to have ownership of assets. And then again, to review, the last one would be the unanimous approval of the third-party contracts.
One thing I would add to that is all future contracts for contract communities also are required to be under the same formula. So that really puts everybody on notice, and those communities can plan for that as we get closer to having to renew those contracts. It's a big change.
Yeah, and our 2 contracted communities have been part of this discussion process and and budget making process for that matter, so they can see that our increased cost to them not only means that, or aren't simply because we want to charge them more, are because it costs more to provide the service to them.
Just a quick clarification, Larry, on that. There is an exemption in here, though, that the commission, when determines necessary, can use a different funding formula, right? Is that in the, that was?
It is, but that, because there's and this was something that we worked very specifically on with the chief, because there's a requirement that all communities approve, all communities will have to be comfortable with that.
Okay.
That's why I characterize it as sort of putting them on notice more than setting an immovable object. If it actually makes sense for the communities and for the contract partner to do something different, that can be considered. But by putting it in there, I think we set the expectation that unless there's a good reason not to, that's the way it's
Okay.
going to be.
Okay, thank you.
And for historical information on that is, our contracts for our 2 townships were behind because of the way they were built 6 years ago. They will catch them up hopefully by the time the end of the contract. There'll be some differences only because of using current numbers as opposed to predicted future numbers, but we'll be in a much better spot with those contracts than we left ourselves at the end of the last one.
Thanks, Chief. Any questions for Chief? The IGA? We have talked about it a bit, so.
Make a motion to approve the revised 2023-22-2032 Deer Grove EMS intergovernmental agreement as presented this evening.
Is there a second?
And I'll second.
We have a motion and a second then. Any further discussion?
I'd just like to thank Chief Lang and for all the work you put in and all of our staff and our other communities that we're partnering with to find a way to move forward and have an agreement that works for everyone. So thank you.
Thanks, Heidi. Any other discussion then? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Thanks, Chief. Stay dry.
I'll try. You all have a good night and be safe.
All right, and then we move to new business. This is first, then discuss and consider selling the fence located at 123 East Cottage Grove Road to New Tech Painting.
Hey, John, I can jump in on that one. So this is the old New Tech facility. The fence was installed there last year. Dave Hensiak's gonna have to put a new fence in at his new property as part of his landscaping buffer. So he was wondering if he could take the old one off our hands. He was offering $500 for it. There's no reason really for us to keep it, so I think it would be fine to sell it, but we also looked at it internally, and John Budlitz went out and looked at it, and he thinks it's something we could also use over at the MSB to replace some of the fencing behind that building. So I think it's ultimately up to you guys, but I think our staff recommendation would be to keep it and use it that way. John, I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on that.
Just that we kind of need, at least, we could use some of that fence. Do we need all that fence? No, but we could definitely utilize it at a couple of our facilities to upgrade existing fencing that we currently have.
And Dave was fine either way. He just figured if we were gonna tear it down and throw it away anyway, he could use it, but if we have a use for it, then that's good too.
Any questions for Aaron or John?
Do we need a motion then, or not?
Yes, we do. It's a discuss.
Okay, well, I will make a motion that we not sell the fence located at 123 East Cottage Grove Road to New Tech Painting.
All right,
Second.
we have a motion second then. Any other discussion?
John, did you have anything specific that you wanted to use a fence for, or is it just, we have it, we could use it at some point?
Well, for instance, our dumpster enclosure at Village Hall in the back is in dire need of some upgrading, which we would use some of that fence for that. At MSB, when the parking lot gets put in, we're gonna have to sort of do the same thing for our dumpsters there. So we would utilize, 4 or 5 of those sections at MSB as well, another 5 or 6 sections here. So we would definitely utilize them. By fall, we would have, once the parking lots are done, we would utilize them for sure at that point.
Any other questions? All right, we have a motion second then. All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed?
No.
Any abstain? Motion carries. Next then, we have reports from village boards, commissions, and committees, starting off with the library board, facilities subcommittee. And Cindy's here.
We met on, the subcommittee met on Wednesday, February 21st, and we had 2 items that we kind of took care of. So the first one, we started our strategic planning kind of kickoff with a SWOT analysis about facilities, and interim space was kind of the focus for the facilities group. We're going to take it back to the library board and kind of do a larger analysis with them. And then we also discussed and considered a recommendation on the fundamental way planning. I had been in conversation with the Heyday Development over the last couple of years, and most recently had, maybe a couple weeks ago, another Zoom meeting with them. And so just bringing that discussion about how the road is going to be proposed to be constructed, and then what the facilities committee recommends, which is the full scope as it presented in the 2008 certified map. And that's all we talked about.
Any questions for Cindy? All right,
Thanks.
thank you. Next, then we have a few action items to consider for Parks, Recs, and Forestry, and we'll kick it over to Heidi.
Yeah, thank you. We met on February 22nd, and we talked about the special event policy, which is going to go to some other committees, and then up through here about people holding special events and what's expected in the permitting process and such. So we'll see that in the future. We talked about naming of the Miracle League Field at Bakken Park, which will be named after Bill Schultz, as you see in the packet. I think that that's a wonderful recognition of all the work Bill's put in to make the Miracle Field a reality in Dane County. So that is one of our discuss and considers in front of us tonight. Did you want to take each one, or should I go over the overview?
You can go over the overview, and
Okay.
then we can piece out the action, or
All right.
considerations, I said.
Sounds good. Then we also talked about vending machines in Bakken Park. I had a request for, was it an ice cream machine? Yes, ice cream vending machine. Sean's still working on locating an ice cream vending machine, so he'll keep us posted. But in the meantime, we thought a beverage, soda, Gatorade, water would be a good addition to have it back in park. So that's something we want to kind of trial there and maybe take it to community park or something else in the future if it works well. And then we had Cameron join us to talk about the Park Development Fund report. He updates us regularly on that. And then it'll be spring before we know it. So the Music in the Park, Music in the Grove event, allowing alcohol in village parks. People just bring beer and wine to the parks for the events. So kind of special exception for that. And that's all we talked about. Unless, Sean, did you have anything else I missed? Okay. I guess there is a pickleball advisory committee of community members interested in pickleball that'll be helping recommend any changes or organization for different age groups and times and such. So that's the other, if you hear something about pickleball advisory committee, that's what they're doing.
Well, we're playing it in February, we got something going on, that's for sure, because that's what's been going on. A lot of passionate people, so that's good. So first then, as Heidi alluded to, we have a discuss and consider for the naming of Miracle Field at Bakken Park.
I'll make a motion that we name Miracle Field at Bakken Park as presented in the memo.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
It's Bill Schultz Field, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Thanks for adding that. Any other discussion?
For the notes, Bill Schultz Miracle Field.
Yeah. I'm like, I thought there was another word in there. With that, then, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next, then, we have the whole item around the vending machine at Bakken Park, starting off with a beverage one, and someday Sean will figure out what to do with the ice cream one.
Yeah, this is just something that we don't have in any of our parks right now, so I just wanted to get your approval on putting something in. Still looking for, as mentioned, an ice cream vending machine or an ice cream sandwich vending machine, but we thought it might be a nice service to just add a vending machine to Bakken Park, try and sell as healthy of drinks as we can, and just kind of see how it goes. As I mentioned in the memo, we'd be in charge of stocking it and doing the money stuff since Pepsi doesn't do that anymore, but we feel we can handle that.
Okay.
I think it's a great idea.
Is that a motion or what?
Nope. Just a comment.
Do we already have recycling bins there?
Nope, but we will.
Okay.
Just trash.
I'll make a motion to approve a vending machine in Bakken Park.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and second then. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Then we have the exception for Music in the Grove events at Bakken for allowing alcohol at those, beer and wine.
I'll make a motion that we approve allowing alcohol in village parks for 2024 Music in the Grove events.
Second.
All right, we have a motion second then. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then? Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Anything else, Heidi? No, that's all. All right, thanks, Heidi. Next then, we have the fire district.
Yep.
It's-
I took the notes this time.
Okay.
We met on February 26th, started at 6:35 at the town hall. We approved the minutes, no public appearances. Chief's report, we had, and again, this is the abridged version, so 43 staff. We're actually at about 1.2 calls on average per day, so we're kind of ticking upwards. Final engineering was completed for the new squad, which is slated for delivery later this year. New electric chainsaws are in service, so we'll probably talk about what to do with the old gas chainsaws. Training last month was for downed firefighters. This month is geared towards air consumption, so they're gonna get a full tank of air and sit down and or not sit, but they're gonna put all their gear on it and see how much air they're gonna consume. So that should be fun. They did add one member in the last month. And then we did have somewhat of a healthy conversation around EMS calls are up considerably so far this year. Chief is going to keep us abreast as conversations progress, but the fire department's being asked to drive to EMS calls. This was news to me. I don't know, Chris, I don't know if that was news to you as well. And don't quote me on this number, but I believe he said it was about 40% increase year over year. I think something in the neighborhood of that. So it was very new for all of us on the fire commission. So something that Chief will keep us abreast of. It wasn't a panic, wasn't something that he asked us to take to our village, to our respective boards, but again, I thought it would be something interesting to bring up.
Can I jump in quick? Because
Yeah.
I was at the training, the oxygen use training.
Sure.
I observed it, and I got to talk to chief and assistant chief. They're being called to the scene to drive the ambulance.
Correct.
So they're not being called just to the scene.
Correct.
They're being called to drive the ambulance to the hospital. Just wanted to put in that
Yeah, no, that's
clarification.
super helpful. Right. And there have been a couple calls where it was just firefighters driving the ambulance, I guess. And again, there's been at least one or two calls this year. So again, this was all very new. It was just part of Chief's report, and it was more for awareness than anything, but it was very, very new information. I put it that way for me. It was
Yeah.
just being on the commission for 3 years now, I didn't know that was a thing. So
I think, it's when they need both paramedics in the back. And I think in the past, PD actually drove sometimes, but now that calls are up for PD also, I think that's seems to be what is contributing to all this.
it's just surprising, I guess. Moving on, we approved a maintenance plan for the generator. So the generator is getting older. They had someone come out and give a quote, or basically look it over and give a quote. It was about little under $4,500 that we approved to be paid out of the ESB fund. We're selling the old pagers and the old saws via Wisconsin surplus, and if there are any proceeds, which we assumed there weren't going to be much, we're actually going to give it back to the association. So past that, still no action on the surplus from the pager replacement project. So the pager replacement project came under budget, and the fire department's trying to determine what to do with the remaining dollars. They're looking at I don't know, Chris, it's like a VR training, or they were going to come talk about it, but some sort of training apparatus that they were looking at. What I kept picturing was something like virtual reality. That's not what it is, but that's what pictured in my head. They'll come back to us at the next meeting. And then next meeting is Monday, February 26th at 6:30, and then we close the meeting at 6:57.
Any questions for David? Next, then, we have Law Enforcement Committee. We met on February 27th, which was just a stone's throw last week. Went through the annual report, and Chief walked us through all of that, highlighting some of the things in there. It's very extensive and done very well, of course. Walked through the use of force for 2023, as well as internal investigations, which are important to talk about. Then we went to the summary of calls. As was mentioned, the calls are up for the early part of the year. That's mainly due to more people in the village as it stands. So, as well as maybe a few more officer time on the ground too, because we're actually getting more of them trained up. And anything else, Chief or Chris or Sarah? All right. Then we'll move into reports from village officers. First one up is myself. Discuss and consider nomination for Lisa Sutter for the library board. There's been an opening for that, so now we need to fill it. So this is for the library, again, for the library board. I can't talk. Any questions, comments in regards to this?
I'll make a motion to approve the nomination of Lisa Sutter to the library board.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next then, we have the ad hoc Centennial Celebration Committee. We've got a few volunteers here, Amy, Vicky, and Britt. Any questions there?
I'll make a motion to approve the nominations of Amy, Vicky, and Britt to the Ad Hoc Centennial Celebration Committee.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next then, we have Larry.
Just have something quick on open records. So just as a reminder, recorded voicemails are, if they meet the definition of record, are records that need to be retained. And there's been one update to the Apple operating system somewhat recently that allows you to answer a call even after the caller has started leaving a voicemail, which is an interesting ad. But you should know that when you do that, what I have found, at least on my phone, is that it records the entire conversation that you had with that person and it shows up as a voicemail. So those would be, if that's a recording of a conversation, that would qualify as a record. And so just be very careful that, you know, oftentimes if we're just having a conversation on the phone, you know, that's just a conversation that nobody's recording, but it is being recorded, and it would be required to be, if you address in that conversation village business or whatever other body you sit on, whatever other committee, you'd be required to retain that and then disclose it if it meets the terms of a request for open records. So it's something to be very cognizant of. If you answer the phone, if you see somebody calling and it's, you know, a village business and you answer it while they're leaving that voicemail, just be aware that if you don't terminate that call and call back or something, you're making a recording.
Any questions for Larry?
I do have one question. So are we required to keep any voicemail that we've received while we're in office? Like, and if we run out of storage, we should be paying for storage, like backup storage, or?
So, and Lisa could maybe jump in here with the retention schedule on that kind of a record. But, you know, what I typically do for my municipal work is when I have a municipal voicemail, I'll listen to it I press the box with the up arrow and I email it to myself and then save it with the records that we keep on everything else. Because your provider is probably not gonna let you keep unlimited records. So, but I think that that's a really good habit for everyone to get into, because just like your emails that you don't delete, you shouldn't delete, it's easier to have one system, and those do forward the actual voice WAV file, and they're retainable then in that regard. Lisa, I don't know if you know off the top of your head what the retention schedule is for that kind of a record.
I don't right off the top of my head, but I would venture to guess it's probably 7. That's typically 5 to 7 is what our norm is, but I can look it up and email it out to everyone.
Thank you.
And that's another, what I always recommend is if you're having a conversation with someone who you know and you have, you know, a personal relationship, but you're also going to be talking about village business, if someone leaves you a voicemail, I always say to them, make sure to just stick to either village or personal, because the personal is not a record. Sometimes it's awkward when you have to save an email and, I'm sorry, a voicemail, and 5 minutes of it was somebody talking about their personal life, and then a couple at the end they're like, oh, but I want to talk to you about this. And so it's just, it's a discipline thing that you can help people that call you to try to pay attention to. A lot of
Plus, Larry, as the younger generation comes up, this is all going to go away because no one younger than me even likes voicemail. So if you just let it pile up, then there won't be any storage, and then no one can even leave you a voicemail. So problem solved.
I would say we do have the capabilities through Teams to be able to have phone numbers. So if that is a concern, I'm with Matt. Everyone knows I don't listen to voicemail, so no one ever leaves me a voicemail. But if that is something, we do have the capability to do like a separate phone number that you have Teams on your phone. Lisa likes to IM me every now and again around agendas and stuff, and it's nice to have. But again, because of the way Teams works, you can have a phone number linked to it, so that you don't have to worry about storage and things like that, or doing what Larry. That's a lot of rigmarole to go through to have to do it. But again, it's to get it off your phone and maintain a record. These are things you have to do. But if that becomes an issue, that if you find yourself doing that, I think we should have a conversation about using a Teams phone number instead.
Yeah, and you're right, and I wouldn't recommend that everybody do what I do, but I do it because we have a particular filing system for all of our things related to each client. And if I get the voicemail and then someone else is working on a project, they need to see what the direction was. So that's why we do it that way. But either way, it has to be retained one way or another, and accessible, and at least compartmentalized enough that there's not 1,000 voicemails that you have to listen through if you get an open records request to see if somebody asked a question that relates to that voicemail. So that's all for today.
All right. Thanks, Larry. Cameron.
And I can follow up a fun topic. So Centennial budget discussion. During the last board meeting, we were just directed to come back with a planned budget. I'm proposing, so roughly, it was put at a range of $5,000 to $10,000 again during generic discussion during last board meeting, brought up by Trustee Peterson. There was really no definitive dollar amount that was given to us. However, during the 2023 budget, since $10,000 was approved, I kind of use that as a benchmark for what our recommendation would be for 2024. So really treating this as an extension of a carryover request, that the funds in the original account that they were budgeted in were brought forward to 2024. That's largely made possible by significantly better than expected investment income returns. So we're able to do this without, spending down fund balance per se. So I'm recommending passing this. And again, any specific projects would have to come back to this to this board for approval. It's not like other budget items where, as it was described in the budget, we could move forward with it.
I'll make a motion to approve 2024 budget amendment 2024-002 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and second then. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next, then we have Deputy Village Administrator, JJ.
Piggybacking on that, you'll see a short memo in there on the development of a centennial logo. That was a common theme from a lot of different folks as this subject's been broached. So I reached out to Distillery, which did the work on our current logo a few years ago, among some other things. And a more local company was recommended by Britt from the Chamber. So I reached out to them. That's Tingles. They ultimately came back with a proposal where they'll do roughly the same thing Distillery proposed, but for significantly less. And I believe it'd be under $800 most likely if we didn't have to do any additional work above their proposal. And so that would be my recommendation, given at the time, until about 30 seconds ago, we didn't have a formal budget, that we'd be cost conscious on this first decision in our celebration. But also it is a more local company, and you know, expanding our options for things like this and get some experience with another firm.
You know the name of the local company?
Tingles?
Ting-
Yep. I think that's how you say it.
So almost 10% of the budget on a logo. I mean, have we considered a contest in the community? You do that for free.
I'm open to any fun ideas. Or we could we could put a pin in this for now and take it to the committee that's now got some members.
I'd say take it to committee, offer up options like what we have here, and then Vince's option, and that's kind of what the committee's for.
Perfect.
One item to note, the police department, I wouldn't say it's not a new logo per se, but they did get some updated badges, 100-year badges for this year. So if you want to take a look at Chief's badge later, he's got a 100 on there.
Don't pass it around, you might not get it back.
So do we need a motion to send it to committee then?
Just to make it official. Larry? Question, do we have to send this to committee, or with a formal motion, or just table it?
You don't have to have a motion to send it to committee.
It just sounded really official, so.
You're welcome to.
That's Heidi's call.
I'll move that we send discussion on the Village Centennial logo to the newly formed Ad Hoc Centennial Celebration Committee.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second then. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Next then, Jay's going to tell us about the draft 2024 community survey.
This will be the second year of our community survey, largely keeping the questions the same. In the first page there in the memo, just highlighted some proposed changes here for your consideration. We did add library programming to the service question. We removed an open-ended question on planning and development and replaced it with two questions specifically on housing, diversity, and affordability. I think will give most likely better information for the board. And then there's a question designed to gather feedback on services that we currently don't provide or currently provide on a really limited basis. So asking survey respondents to indicate their level of support for a service they might be interested in. All of these have been brought up over my time here, at least, and many of you have probably heard a lot of this. So, and then due to quite a few comments and some from board members last year, we're offering an open-ended comment section, and then staff will kind of review and synthesize that, look for themes that are worth bringing back to the board, summarize it. And if anybody gets more interested, you can always give me a call and take a look at however many we do get. So last year we had over 600 responses in the survey. So we're hoping to get something similar. Did investigate building it in Microsoft Forms, but it turns out that Forms I couldn't, and David, correct me if I'm wrong, there was no way without somebody having an account that we could, SurveyMonkey, what we used last year, basically once you do it from one device, you couldn't do the survey again. Where Forms, if you were outside of the network, you could just keep taking it. So we're not trying to be overly scientific, but we're also trying to keep a little bit of control on it. So we're gonna most likely stick with SurveyMonkey, and that also made reporting things pretty simple too. So open for any questions from board members.
I just wanted to make one note on the open-ended question and response. The nice thing from a communication standpoint for the village is it would be an opportunity to maybe, well, certainly to, I mean, the clear one is to learn about any deficiency that maybe we're not aware of that a lot of people share. But the other side of the coin is maybe an opinion that a lot share that maybe is a myth that we can correct. So we can show what the themes are out there, and then we can work with our communications team and put something together to either clear something up or explain how we, hope to find ways to improve.
Any questions, comments regarding the survey for 24?
When is it going to launch? Or when
Depending
is it
on the
going-
next motion, it could launch tomorrow. Ideally, it would go out this week.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2024 community survey as presented.
Second.
We have a motion second then. Any further discussion? Having heard then, none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Next, then we have Public Works Director, John.
Well, I guess we're just bringing this lighting concern kind of brought back to the board after some, concerned citizen at the last village board meeting kind of brought it to our attention again. So at the high level, basically, there's no lighting at the Glacial Drumlin Trail. And I guess to bring it to your attention and discuss options and what the board might want to do about that.
So on the agenda, there's no, it's just a discussion item today. That's not a discuss and consider. A couple things just to consider as we're talking about bringing a proposal is the timing. I think when this was talked about initially, this was potentially talked about a potential as a 25 project. The individual who brought it to our attention was hoping we could do something in 2024. There really is two options, or there's two options that we identified internally. We could do the 4 black decorative poles and LED lights to kind of match that area for roughly 20,000. Or just the standard 4 Alliant installed concrete aggregate at roughly 10,000, or about half. Josh made a good point. If we were gonna do the lights at that proposed, JJ has it up, that we may want to consider also doing one where JJ's mouse is, approximately. So again, just looking for some direction from the board on what level of investment, if you'd like us to continue exploring options. Ultimately, this could be deferred to the Public Works Committee and they could discuss it further and bring a formal.
From a safety perspective, I think it certainly is a good reason why the board should be talking about this. Aesthetically, kind of trying to match it with the existing ones that are right, right on the path and near the road there and all along the road in this area, as well as I think there's some further over on the Houston property as well. Seems like a better solution than the big concrete ones that you see on a standard street that Alliant would put out. This is a key trail for the community, and we spent a lot of time talking about the other section that goes through the rest of the town, and hopefully eventually goes to Madison once that section can be sorted out. But that's just my thoughts. It's to keep.
There was some brief discussion about partnership. So there was some discussion with staff that maybe we could contact Houston and see what level of if we were willing to do the Alliant version, would they be willing to kick in the other half to make it the nicer looking poles.
You said it was 10 or 20,000. Was that for the four or for the?
Four. So if we would do it an additional one.
So it'd be an extra
there would
$5,000 probably.
Yep.
Where would they go? JJ, can you kind of put your cursor roughly where they would go?
I can send. I'll send it to you quick.
I guess Cambridge.
While he's waiting, I'll just say I think we do need that fifth one because it's farther away from the street. I think it's more important to get light out there because it's probably where more nefarious actions might happen.
Where is this guy finding the used condoms here? Like, is there a house near?
No,
I don't
there's.
see it on the.
It's hydrate on the one side, and then, and then apartments kind of back behind the retirement community.
Towers there.
Yeah,
It's pretty public. It's pretty.
it's dark there
Yeah.
at night.
Right. There's no lights there.
Yeah, if you I've ridden through there, run through there at night. It's dark. Surprisingly, because.
Well, JJ's pulling that up. Speaking of partnerships, Hydrate isn't, have we talked to them about any partnership? They do own the land, and then it's like a easement for the the state trail.
Weren't we gonna talk with the county too to see if they wanted to?
Yeah, and so far, nobody, well, I mean, I haven't reached out to the Houston family yet, but ultimately, there's no real interest from the DNR, Dane County, or Hydrate. Hydrate's perfectly fine with us getting an easement to put our poles there, but that's kind of the extent of where they want to be involved with.
So Chris, I can't remember if it was John or Chris that said it, but there's that outbuilding right there, right? The restroom?
Yep.
And I think JJ, I think Cameron said, JJ, you said we should put at least one more light farther up the trail.
I'll give our engineers credit for that one.
Josh.
They said
I'm
if we're
trying
gonna
to-
if
I'm
we're
trying to
gonna if we're gonna
attribute
do it,
accurate
might as
here.
well put it at that.
But yeah, I mean, I think I'll echo what John's saying. Like I've ridden up and back from there at night, and it gets abnormally dark in there. So I would advocate for 5 lights with one to JJ. I think you're the one sharing your screen. If you put your cursor, go down the trail a little bit, so that outbuilding has some light coverage, and the trail has it as well. So I think 5 lights is where it's at.
One kind of important thing to keep in mind, it will take probably at least 8 months from approval of a final project to so this might be 2025 regardless. So my recommendation would be, having JJ and John officially come up with a plan in Public Works and then present a final idea to talk about scope and dollar amount.
And certainly also reaching out to Houston's to get their, one, to make them certainly aware of this, because it's their, part of their parking lot area, but two, see if there's interest from their perspective. Because they may say, well, you know what, really you need another one, on the back trail that goes.
Right.
I don't know what they'd say, but might be good to at least talk to them.
And there's no legal way to have Hydrate pitch in or state, I mean, our residents, of course, use this, and it's a great amenity that draws a lot of people here, but it's also feels kind of, I don't know, rubs you the wrong way that we have to be the ones to foot the bill, even though it's a different property owner and it's a state trail. I think we need to do it, and I don't, but it's still like.
It's like
we
it's
have
a
to foot the
thorny
whole bill.
issue because
Yeah.
Hydrite owns it. I mean, we take care of part of the trail. The county does. The state has a say in it. So it's like it's one of those things that like everybody has responsibility, meaning no one has any responsibility. So like, unfortunately, I feel I'm in agreement with you, but unfortunately, we're the only ones willing to stand up and do anything. And I think we owe it to residents and for those of us that use the trail. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but I guess we just have to do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. We do have to do it, and I think we should get the ball rolling as soon as possible to get things moving, so.
That sounded like
But
a motion to me.
It's just discussed, so.
Just discuss.
it's-
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm with you, Cameron. Like, let's send it back to Public Works for something formal and then come back to us.
Anything else on this? All right, thanks, everybody. Then we'll go down to communication business. First up is consideration of the vouchers.
Make a motion to approve the bills as written.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Correspondence, I didn't have any. I don't know if any other board member has. All right, upcoming community events.
Strings Fest. Monday the 18th.
There's a Lion Spaghetti dinner coming up too. You saw, if you've seen the billboard coming into town, down at Flint Hall. Saturday, yeah. 4 to 8.
Oh, and the St. Patrick's Day Firemen's fundraiser, corned beef and cabbage.
And that's during the day. Late morning, early afternoon, if I remember right.
Yeah, I think it's, 10 or 11 till, I think it's like 3-4 hours usually.
All right. Anything else from anyone else? All right. Future agenda items. Matt, anything you want to call out?
Yes, one main one, and as a reminder too, we'll have, it's on a different date than regular, so it'll be on the March 20th, which is a Wednesday. We received 5 proposals from architectural firms for the possible new police station. So the staff team is gonna review those and invite 3 of the 5. So we'll do our own internal scoring system to whittle it down a little bit, and then invite 3 to present to the board, present/interview to the board in open session. And then, so that'll be planned for next Wednesday. So we'll probably allow for 15 to 20 minutes for each. So we're not anticipating too many other agenda items, so that'll probably be the bulk of the meeting.
All right, with that then, item 11.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's non-debatable. All those in favor then?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, everybody. Have a good week.
Look at that. Not even an hour.
We're going to pay for that.
Right. Right.